Yaoundé. A discrete 5-page constitutional amendment bill currently before Parliament could mark one of the most consequential political shifts in Cameroon in decades. Beneath its technical tone lies a profound restructuring of presidential power and succession, one that effectively allows President Paul Biya to shape his own political afterlife. At the heart of the reform is the creation of a vice president, a position that has never existed in Cameroon's constitutional order. But unlike in many presidential systems, this vice president would not be elected. Instead, the office holder would be directly appointed and dismissed by the President of the Republic. The role itself is not independently defined, its powers depend entirely on what the President chooses to delegate. This design raises immediate concerns about institutional balance. With no electoral mandate and no constitutional autonomy, the Vice President emerges less as a national figure and more as an extension of presidential authority, accountable to one man rather than to the electorate. The most far-reaching change lies in how power would transfer in the event of a vacancy. Until now, Cameroon's constitution followed a transitional model. The President of the Senate would step in temporarily, with strictly limited powers, while organizing elections within a defined time frame. The proposed reform dismantles that system. Under the new framework, the Vice President would immediately assume full presidential powers. He would complete the remainder of the sitting president's term without any election. The transition would no longer be temporary or electoral, but automatic and continuous. The Senate President's role is reduced to a contingency scenario, stepping in only if the vice presidency is vacant or its holder is unable to serve. In practical terms, the reform consolidates the power to determine succession entirely in the hands of the sitting president. At 92 years old and recently sworn in for another 7-year term, Paul Biya faces mounting speculation about the future of leadership in Cameroon. This constitutional revision offers a clear mechanism. The president can now designate his successor in advance, install him in office, and ensure continuity without electoral uncertainty. This marks a decisive shift from a system of institutional succession to one of personal designations. Critics argue that the reform weakens democratic safeguards by removing the immediate requirement for a popular vote in the event of presidential vacancy. By allowing an unelected appointee to govern for potentially several years, the amendment could be seen as diluting electoral accountability at a critical moment of transition. Supporters, however, may frame it as a stability measure, reducing the risk of political vacuum or contested elections in times of crisis. Yet the concentration of power raises deeper questions. Who checks the vice president's authority if his legitimacy derives solely from the president? What guarantees exist against internal power struggles within the ruling elite? And how might citizens respond to a leader who assumes office without direct electoral endorsement? Ultimately, the proposed constitutional change appears designed to control the uncertainty of succession in a system long defined by one man's rule. Rather than leaving the transition to institutional processes or electoral competition, the reform brings it firmly within presidential control, allowing Paul Biya to influence not just his tenure, but what comes after it. Whether this move ensures stability or merely postpones political confrontation remains an open question. What is certain, however, is that Cameroon's rules of power are being rewritten, quietly, but with lasting consequences.